Okay, good morning everyone. I'm going to make a start on this webinar. This webinar is being organised by the Modern Built Environment Knowledge Transfer Network, a technology strategy board funded network. My name is Ben Kidd from CIRIA, the Construction Industry Research and Information Association. My day job is with CIRIA as the network manager, but I also have a side role with the Modern Built Environment Knowledge Transfer Network as Innovation Champion, and I've been helping in the last few years to try and raise the profile of and signpost to innovation and research funding opportunities in the civil engineering sector, particularly related to the modern built environment and in particular in the transport sector. So today's webinar is going to be looking at European funding opportunities through Horizon 2020 related to civil engineering construction, particularly in the transport sector. And we're fortunate to have Terry Hill from the European Construction Technology Platform, the chair of the ECTP, here with us today, who will be talking later about those opportunities. In terms of the agenda, I will be just start going through, just give an overview of the challenges and opportunities in both the transport sector as a whole, and then specifically within that the construction challenges and opportunities, and really focusing in on the opportunities there, particularly for R&D, with lots of big capital projects currently underway, such as Crossrail, and an enormous amount of innovation currently underway there. So in that vein, I wanted to bring out some examples of UK capability and reference to a number of existing research and innovation centres, just to raise awareness of those. And then the idea is that we try and identify opportunities, potentially utilising that existing capability to then feed into and access new funding opportunities within Europe from the new Horizon 2020 programme, and that is where I'll be handing over to Terry. Okay. So now, transport sector challenges and opportunities. There is an enormous amount going on in the transport sector at the moment, with large capital schemes, as I mentioned, such as Crossrail, but also High Speed 2, looking at new long-distance corridors. There's an enormous amount of work going on looking at the electrification of road transport and also electrification of elements of the rail transport sector. This really is just a sort of a cloud of ideas on this slide here, just with an enormous amount going on around smart ticketing. Remote monitoring of infrastructure assets is growing in importance, particularly as we saw yesterday with examples from the rail sector, where earthwork embankments that down in Dawlish, an area that had already been identified as an at-risk site, there'd already been work done there around potential use of remote monitoring, I'm aware. And I think that the adoption of remote monitoring technologies is going to become more crucial as these increasing challenges on the sector in terms of increasing demand for transport, and the additional challenge of aging assets. Particularly in the UK, we have an enormous amount of legacy assets in the road and rail sectors from Victorian infrastructure, and there's an increasing requirement to maintain those and keep those up to standard whilst and renewing them, remediating and renewing them in light of additional pressures from increased use, and which is projected to increase through time as well. And there's also aspects that are picked up here in terms of the process side of things, as well as the engineering. There's also elements of availability of finance for projects as well, and the procurement of policy, and increasing use of collaborative contracts in the civil engineering sector. So in terms of the construction aspect, this slide gives an overview of the Construction 2025 document, which hopefully everyone will be familiar with, which was published back in June, July of last year. It's the industrial strategy for construction, and there is a whole chapter in that document on innovation, research and innovation in the construction sector, particularly focusing in on the civil infrastructure sector. And really there's 4 key headlines that have come out of that in terms of the need for lower costs, faster delivery, lower emissions, and also the aspect of improvement in exports as well. So obviously an aspect of here of linking in with Europe as well. And of course these key headlines also do align with the key headlines of what Europe are looking at, also with the added aspect there of obviously increasing employment as well. And obviously with this slide I just wanted to really reinforce the point of the construction contribution to the economy, and obviously one aspect that really needs to be picked up here as well is the aspect of transport being an enabler for other aspects of the economy as well. So really we can't underemphasize the importance of the civil engineering and construction sectors for being an enabler for other aspects of the economy. So in terms of identifying the existing capability we have in the UK, I think we are recognised internationally, particularly as we have this long legacy of engineering prowess in going back to the sort of the Victorian age, and right up to the present day, we've now got a number of mechanisms in place for promoting research and innovation. Increasingly, we're starting to see in collaborative contracts for construction that there is a requirement for innovation and knowledge transfer partnerships to be included. For instance, in Crossrail at the moment, there's an enormous amount of innovation being undertaken there. We also have the existing research councils and the Technology Strategy Board. So we've got this link between academic research and industry-led research. We've got the new catapults that have come into play in the last year around future cities, and in particular here the transport systems catapult. So there's an enormous amount going on in this space, and part of what I've tried to do with these slides is really just bring all of that together and being able to signpost to the most relevant ones of those for this topic. And these slides, I should say, will be uploaded afterwards, or the whole webinar will be uploaded online afterwards. I am also preparing a signposting document which will have a number of other examples and case studies and links to further information should anyone be interested. I just wanted now to pull out some of those examples. So on this slide we've got just brings together some of the sort of emerging technologies we can see there with that's the London Bridge upgrade from last year. From Costain, the operatives working on that site were able to utilise emerging technologies. We've been able to use iPads and augmented reality, working with the designers and the M&E contractors to be able to actually see during the construction process, utilising that augmented reality, see the as-built diagrams basically there at a touch of a button. So these technologies are really starting to create a real step change in the industry, and initiatives such as the Cambridge Centre for Smart Infrastructure and Construction, they've had a number of breakthroughs recently with new monitoring technologies that they're trialling with Crossrail, and then there's an enormous amount of exciting work that's starting to fall out of that in terms of remote monitoring of assets and being able to feed that into better analytics of infrastructure performance and ultimately feeding into better infrastructure business planning and a better business case for investment in infrastructure. So continuing with a few more of these examples, I just wanted to really highlight here there's also, as well as the existing Research Council-led and Technology Strategy Board-led research and innovation opportunities. There is, of course, also industry-led research and innovation, so the Highways Agency, for instance, Network Rail and others will have their own research, strategic research frameworks. Highways Agency are currently going through an update of theirs at the moment. And other projects that are coming online, such as HS2. There was a big conference for HS2 back in November where they were looking at one of the topics, the main topics at that conference was innovation. And while the procurement contracts are currently being prepared, how can innovative technologies be incorporated both at the start of the project and throughout the long duration of that large project? Continuing on the rail theme, there is the new Future Railway Initiative. As I say, links to all of these will be circulated afterwards. But within the Rail Safety Standards Board, they have set up a new Enabling Innovation team, and a number of competition calls have been emerging from that new initiative, most recently on condition monitoring of infrastructure assets, and I'm aware there's a number of others on their way. So one to keep a track of. Also, in terms of off-site construction, Build Off-site have recently been doing a number of joint events with institutional civil engineers, so looking at taking expertise that has emerged largely from the built environment and buildings sector in terms of off-site construction, and applying that and raising awareness and identifying case studies of where that technology and expertise can be applied within the civil engineering and transport sector. BIM task force, there's obviously you can't really go anywhere nowadays within the construction sector without hearing about building information modeling. An enormous amount of work currently underway to see how that integrates with existing data management systems in the infrastructure sector, and the link between BIM and GIS. And there is a forthcoming competition which is being launched on the 20th of February by Technology Strategy Board, which is related to BIM. So I, again, will circulate link to that afterwards to all delegates. And at the local scale, so we've talked about sort of the rail side and the strategic road network through Highways Agency, but at the local road scale, there's also the Highways Maintenance Efficiency Program, which is the Department for Transport-led initiative, which again is trying to promote joined-up approaches across different local authorities, looking for greater efficiencies and trying to promote whole-life infrastructure asset management across the local highway network. And then I mentioned there's a number of existing EPSRC and Technology Strategy Board research and innovation centres. I mentioned the Transport Systems Catapult. We've got the existing mechanism of knowledge transfer partnerships, and a number of those are currently underway, particularly with Crossrail. And on the Connect platform for the Modern Built Environment website, there is an example there from Crossrail of a current KTP which is ongoing there. There's a number of EPSRC-funded projects such as Livable Cities, looking at transport and other aspects of cities in terms of resilience and how the role that transport plays in that from an engineering perspective. I've mentioned the Cambridge Centre for Smart Infrastructure and Construction. There's the Infrastructure Transitions Research Consortium, which is a strategic sort of national UK level body of work, and a number of other initiatives such as iBuild, which is looking at local level infrastructure delivery and new business models for infrastructure delivery, and Assessing the Underworld, which is looking at promoting new technologies for such as acoustic monitoring technologies for mapping and assessing the hidden assets really of buried utilities and other pipes that are buried underground. And there's, of of course, a number of other mechanisms available via the EPSRC for knowledge transfer, such as through centres for doctoral training, engineering doctorates, and other mechanisms. Again, I'll be circulating links to those afterwards. On the European side, there are a number of European-funded research projects that I'm aware of currently underway. Mainline is a European collaborative project currently funded by the Framework 7 programme, with Network Rail and a number of others involved, looking at the management of infrastructure assets and how that can be done better. And then there's a number of other projects here. I won't go into too much detail on these, but again, I'll hyperlink to those afterwards. So that's really just a quick run through of UK capability, or existing capability in ongoing research and innovation centres. There's a long list of others that are currently underway as well, but I just wanted to give a flavour of what is currently underway, and really from my perspective, getting involved in a lot of those that I've mentioned, I feel there's an enormous opportunity to share learning from those projects with other partners in Europe. And to that end, we ran a workshop back in June last year, which was looking to see if we could develop some sort of roadmap to align where we are currently working in the UK with priorities from the EU. These are the list of topics that we looked at in that workshop to align with a draft strategy document which had been prepared at the time from the European Construction Technology Platform REFINE project, which is Research for Future Infrastructure Networks in Europe. And at this point, hopefully, we will have Terry online with his audio. And I'd like to introduce Terry, who will give an overview of that European perspective of the ECTP REFINE and Horizon 2020. So Terry, are you online?
Hello. Can you hear me, Ben, at all?
Yes. Hello, Terry. Thank you.
Hi there. Great. Okay. Fine. Yes, my name's Terry Hill. I'm from Arup, but I'm also chairman of a European construction industry research body that's called ECTP, which is the European Construction Technology Platform, and particularly have been leading its REFINE initiative, which is about research for new infrastructure. Now, last December the 17th, we held a brokerage workshop in Brussels with people who are interested in this area of work, infrastructure construction, in accessing Horizon 2020 funds. I chaired that meeting. I must admit, I was the only person from the UK there, but virtually every other European country was represented. Contractors, designers like Arup, research institutes, product manufacturers, and so on were all there, all of whom came with their particular suggestions or proposals for collaborative research and accessing these funds. So the slides I'm going to show you now are taken from a presentation that was given by a lady called Christina Marolda, who heads up the built environment part of Horizon 2020, the director of research. Okay, Ben, you go on. So there is the next fund that started this year, 2014. You can see it says there's a budget of 77 billion euros over the next 7 years. So it's quite a sizable fund for us to try and access. Now, a core part of Europe 2020 is you can see the headlines there: investing in future jobs, addressing people's concerns about their livelihoods, and strengthening the EU's global position. Next one. Next slide. It's got some principles behind it, which I'll just rush through quickly before I come to the actual calls that are out there now. Excellent science, industrial leadership, and societal challenges. Next. These are the key aspects: research, innovation, and market transformation, collaborative in the majority of cases, cost sharing, commission are defining the priorities, innovation, and European impact. Next. You'll be familiar with this if you read through it. What is the process of going from basic research right the way through to having an impact on the market? Next. So the challenge in transport, and this you can see here how the European Commission and Horizon 2020 has taken up the lobbying that Refine has been undertaking. When Refine started, it was actually quite difficult to get DG Research and DG Move, which is the Transport the Directorate, to really engage with, quite honestly, Transport and the Research Directorates were more hooked into the big manufacturing sectors, economic sectors, and also some of the more far-reaching research in nanotechnology and graphene and so on. And therefore, the people who were getting the most airtime were the automotive industry, the aerospace industry, IT, and so on. Construction, we had trouble, but they have now picked up the themes that we were pushing, that construction should be smarter, should be lower carbon, should be far more integrated into the total transport system. So the challenge is to be research efficient, environmentally friendly, safe and seamless, and benefit to the citizens, and promote globally competitive transport industries. Next. There's a spread that the Horizon 2020 has been addressing across in the transport sector. Next. So 4 broad lines of activities: resource efficient transport, better mobility, less congestion, safer and with higher security, global leadership coming from the industry, socioeconomic and behavioral research. I'll refer to that behavioral research later on, although I'm not making a big deal about it at the moment. I'm addressing largely construction. Next. The budget is split between larger, smaller calls and larger initiatives. Next. So you can see over the next 7 years how they see things going. So at the moment, 2014, you'll see there are some calls in a minute. They envisage largely having biennial, so 2-year projects, although they're going to review that next year in 2015 to see how the first tranche of calls have gone. Next. So here we are. Next, I think it'll highlight infrastructure then on the next one. So here you are. You can see this and next year's budget. Out of that 77 billion, here we are with that. And so you can see for transport, it works through the different modes, and there are technology platforms addressing each of those modes. I'm addressing infrastructure today, but actually if you go and have a look at Horizon 2020 and the calls, then you can see they're spread across all of that. And look at the scale that green vehicles gets, for instance, out of that. And it's that sort of a challenge that I was busy lobbying in Brussels to try and increase the amount that goes to construction itself, because I think there is a huge pent-up enthusiasm for research into construction, into infrastructure construction. Next. So here we are. We're now getting to the meat of what is there. If you have a look through, you'll see a very large number of calls, most of which are for next year, so you can get ready for them. But there are a few which are for this year. And here we are, highlighted in red on that. There are two for this year. The first one, which is called MG 8.1, is smarter design, construction, and maintenance. Quite direct, quite, sorry, the last one, back on the last one a minute, sorry, Ben. And then I'll come on to the next one, which is next generation transport. So the first one, smarter design, is quite practical, tactical, about whether or not we can improve the design, construction, and maintenance in infrastructure. The next one, which I'll also describe, is more far-reaching, looking a bit further ahead. Next generation transport infrastructure that's resource efficient, smarter, and safer. Okay, now on to the next slide. So the first one is about smarter design, construction, and maintenance. There's a deadline just next month for initial submissions, and then decisions taken in August. So you can see them there, 18th of March, 28th of August. The specific challenge is about fewer, faster, more sustainable, and better planned interventions with maximum safety for the workers and other traffic participants. Now that one you can see, all you've got to do is just type into Google that code word, the MG 8.1, and you'll get through to this. And there's actually quite a lot more behind that about what they envisage. Next one. Yeah, sorry, if we go on, that's it, well done. So there we are. The next one is the one that's a bit more far-reaching. Next generation transport infrastructure, research, efficient, smarter, and safer. So this, as I said, is looking further ahead about resource efficient, smarter, and safer 21st century transport infrastructure, better integration of infrastructure in its natural habitat. So again, this is directed at getting far more sustainable infrastructure construction and how to put. Now, those are the two that I've been emphasizing today. I don't know about the rest of you. At Arup, we're taking this quite seriously. You do need to look to having collaborators across Europe and a combination of academic and industrial partners for getting access to this. But the budgets are quite sizable. So if you can think of a type of research that you think should be going ahead, but put it under one of these two headings, then the people in Brussels will look on it quite favorably. I wasn't going to show you the other calls that are in there, other topics, but just let me tell you that in this whole area of sustainable transport, there are more socioeconomic and behavioral research. So those of you who are interested beyond construction, then there's about 5 different ones this year in 2014. One is about user behavior and mobility patterns. One is about funding and understanding how transport and infrastructure is funded. There is one about research, technology development, and reviewing the whole area of research and technology development and market prospects across the European transport industries. There's one about research and innovation strategies for transport that will therefore be done this year, will have a big impact looking for the rest of the 7 years. And finally, there's innovation awards for students and researchers. So setting up, the idea about setting up a more competitive environment among students and researchers for the annual European Union Transport Conference that's held each year. In fact, it's being held in April this year in Paris. So those are the ones that are broader. Next slide. There is a particular fund for small businesses and fast-tracking fund. You can see it's there, 84.5 million euros, that is addressing the role of SMEs in this challenge. The next one slide. And so there you can see IT1. It's out. This call is out there now about how small business innovation research for transport is open. Quite what the larger firms like ourselves can do in there, I'm not sure, unless it is encouraging SMEs to get involved. And there'll be further opportunities for SMEs next year in the fast tracks to innovation as well. So I think that's running through. Sorry, there's more detail on that small business innovation research, which is enhancing the involvement of weaker players. I hope that was a nice and condescending view about SMEs. SMEs that I know are pretty strong, but still in innovation activities, as well as facilitating the startup and emergence of new high-tech SMEs, is of paramount importance. Next. Yeah, I think that's has got to the end, Ben, of that, and I hope that therefore people who are listening in and watching this can see the opportunities.
Super. Well, thank you for that, Terry. That was really useful run through and insight into your dealings in Europe and the challenges, particularly as you mentioned with going up against the automotive industry and trying to wave the construction flag, particularly in that. If I roll on to the next slide, I've got just a few hyperlinks here to further information, and I've got a hyperlink there to a LinkedIn group which is very active for Horizon 2020, particularly for the transport sector calls. One question I had, Terry, was do you, from your experience, how have the best mechanisms for identifying and working with European collaborators?
Okay, we're obviously thinking about this and acting on this quite energetically within Arup. First of all, Ben, I was just asking with you, the original presentation, which was longer than the one I've just given, I think you were going to put it on the KTM website, were you? I can't remember whether you were or not.
Yes, that'll go up afterwards as well. Yeah.
Okay, because there's more in that about how to access this, and also if you go onto the ECTP and Refine website, you can see all the participants that were in the workshop before. But the key thing is therefore having these pan-European links, and therefore getting in contact with those in the industry under the headings of contractors, of research, European research bodies, of product manufacturers, and indeed other consultants as well, to form these joint ventures for working. A word of caution. Whilst the budgets are substantial, not as big as I had hoped for construction, but they are substantial. There are particular ways in which the European Commission assess the costs, and for companies like ours, quite honestly, it doesn't really cover your costs properly. I think you may have seen somewhere back in one of those slides, it is enigmatically said brackets, no profit, close brackets. Well, there's not much chance of making profit on this work. The key driver for this is how we, and I hope others who are joining in with this webinar, want to keep ahead of the game technologically and keep in that research and development space. So my words of advice are that actually you should really get into this really on the back of some research or innovation projects that you probably had on the go anyway, and you see it of benefit collaborating with us and getting some additional funding. And so I say going into this, to see it is a big business opportunity. I don't think so. I think it is far more a huge technology opportunity for us in the UK to make progress in how we see future construction for, in this case, for transport infrastructure. So that's our experience of Arup. Think about the sort of research that you would be doing anyway, and then see how that fits synergistically with the calls that I've just been referring to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And from my discussions with Technology Strategy Board and BIS and others, that I know that there's a strong desire to see how we can utilize existing R&D and research centres that are currently funded. I know we've got Philip Keenan online from Cambridge Centre for Smart Infrastructure and Construction. I think it's there's going to be a good opportunity there, and I'm sure the Technology Strategy Board are keen to see how we can utilise and get leverage of this existing capability and then target European funding to continue a lot of the good work that's already underway. One sort of message I have been getting back as I've been learning more about Horizon 2020, Terry, is that the messages have been that it's intended to be easier to access. I know there's been comments made in the past that actually accessing and putting together bids for particularly the Framework 7 programs were quite onerous and did require a lot of time and input just to apply. The messages I seem to be getting are that Horizon 2020 will be easier in that respect. Is that the message you've been getting as well?
I don't know that, because personally, or rather in Arup, I don't think we've necessarily found it hard. As I said, it's not particularly lucrative. In other words, that the costs that are willing to be reimbursed, quite honestly, don't cover our costs. But that's okay because we've got internally with Arup research funding anyway, so we match all that together with those, and then you can make the whole thing stack up. The point about Horizon 2020, which is advocating, is that it is far less prescriptive. In other words, they are keen to hear innovative proposals across a broader range, rather than them saying quite particularly what it is they want. I think they're reflecting the fact that, quite honestly, DG Research is not that familiar yet with the construction sector. They know what they do. They know what they want to do. If they want to address the automotive industry about having smarter, cleaner, greener cars, that's quite narrowly defined. In some of the areas that they're straying into, they are saying quite openly, "Come up with your proposals." And so long as it addresses the broad topics that I was talking about earlier on, then they'll be open. Then they'll be open to that. Of course, that's brave words for them to say now, when they get maybe an avalanche from across Europe. And I really would encourage people in the UK to try and do something out of this, because our European colleagues are very active in this. As I say, I'm frequently the only UK person there, and we have lots of contractors, consultants and research institutes from across Spain, Germany, France, Scandinavia, Netherlands, and so on there as well. But your point about it being easier, as I say, in Arup we didn't find it particularly hard. Let me just give you an example. ECTP, which Arup is a member of, the European Construction Technology Platform, we started off with an initiative which was about energy efficient buildings. That was probably about 2008, 2009. So that is called E2BA, the energy efficient buildings activities, and that was successful. It got under Framework 7, FP7. It got quite a bit of money putting into it, and I don't know about others, but Arup participated in joint ventures, and I think we're working on maybe half a dozen different E2B energy efficient building, European funded projects at the moment, and went into those and won them. Now, as I say, I can't repeat enough. That was done because we were doing research into energy efficient buildings anyway. We had other partners who brought funding with them, and put all that together with a sizable bit of European funding, and we've got a project. So we're working on those. This is now ECTP's next initiative, Refine, and as you can see from this, we've succeeded in getting some lines of funding to do with transport infrastructure funding.
Yeah, and I think you're quite right. There's an enormous opportunity here with existing research and innovation that's currently being commissioned by Crossrail and others that will start to get commissioned by HS2, and also the highways aspect and even the local highway aspect that I mentioned with the Highways Maintenance Efficiency Program to really link into those and see how we can utilize some of the funding there to join up with these pots of money from Europe. Yes, and I think coming back to one of my slides right at the start, actually, from my point of view, the slide that I put up from the industrial strategy for construction, the Construction 2025 vision, really the headline from that vision is wanting the UK to be world leaders in construction, and particularly within civil engineering construction by 2025. So I suppose you could say this is a fantastic opportunity, a potential call to arms, perhaps, to put our flag in the ground in Europe and really make the case that I think a lot of people in Europe are seeing all of these case studies and examples of research that's currently underway with Crossrail and others, and I think a really good opportunity to share learning with partners in Europe in that respect. Yeah,
that's right.
So, okay, I don't think we've got any other questions coming in at the moment. So I think with that in mind, we can probably wrap up a bit earlier than anticipated. But thank you, Terry, for your time today. And as we mentioned, all of the slides here and the recording of this webinar will be available online on the MBE KTN website, which we'll circulate round. I will be working with partners in Institution for Civil Engineers and Construction Industry Council and others to make sure that the awareness is raised. And as Terry mentioned, the longer presentation that was given by the European Commission will be available online as well, which has further information about actually how to apply for some of these calls that are currently out there at the moment. So I'd just like to thank Terry for your time, and if anyone's got any questions, then please feel free to email me afterwards. My details will be circulated around afterwards. Okay, thank you, Terry.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed.
Bye.
Bye.